Welcome to the Shared Practices podcast. We have a very special guest today who we're focusing on growth this season. Usually people either do an acquisition and then they have to grow that, or they do a startup, they have to grow that. A lot of growth is required in a startup. Some people are crazy enough to do both. And that's someone that we have today. Welcome to the show, Dr. Skylor Morton. How's it going?
Hey man, it's going great. Glad to be on. I owe a lot of this crazy venture to Shared Practices. So
I'm sorry, and you're welcome at the same time.
yeah, exactly. You guys in Dental Town have really put me in a real predicament right here. So
This is good. I was excited when you posted on our Facebook group, and I was like, okay, we need to talk.
yeah,
So you are a 2019 grad, is that correct?
yes, 2019.
Which in the grand scheme of things feels like forever ago for all of us with COVID and everything that's going on, but especially in your case. So you currently own two dental practices. Let's go back to the beginning of this journey. How and why and when did all of this start for you?
Um, Honestly, I'd say it probably started first or second. I'd say first year. Um, I started to realize that I was way too big of a pain to work for somebody and just too strong-willed, butt heads. Ask my classmates, ask my professors, especially. I realized that working for somebody was not gonna work out well.
So you mean like at all in any increment, you're like, I cannot be an associate ever is essentially what you realized.
Oh yeah,
I love that you figured that out about yourself like so early in dental school.
yeah, oh yeah. First year, second year, it was very evident. Um, and then realizing that I enjoyed reading old things on Dental Town, old threads, and enjoyed the business side of things more than microbiology and biochem and
Sure.
credible stuff. So spent most of my time in the back of the class or not in the class, but using my time wisely and studying on an acquisition or startup or just post post graduation what life would be like and making sure I set myself up for that.
Well, and it sounds like you embodied what George has said, and George, I apologize if I butcher the quote here, but don't let your education, don't let your schooling get in the way of your education.
Exactly. And I think I heard that on a podcast that he said, and I was like, that's kind of where I'm at. So
Nice.
exactly.
You realized, okay, I can never work for anyone else, which is just great. And then what was like the moment of, okay, am I going to do a startup? Am I going to do an acquisition? And where did you go from there?
Um, Actually, I was going back and forth between both of them because I don't know if you remember back whenever I was a second year, there was a guy named Todd Peterson, which is a great thread to read on Dental Town. He did a startup, and it was awesome. I believe it was a startup. Yeah, startup, and it was just went awesome. And then you got into the arguments of acquisition versus startup, and you got cash flow immediately versus 3 months plus of no income, and so I was kind of in between and started doing some demographic searches. Actually, take that back. I started doing a macro demographics or macro. Is that a word? Macro demographic.
Sure.
Started to look on a bigger scale to narrow it down to a city that I wanted to move to.
Did you know the state already?
No, I'm from New Mexico, and I sure as heck wasn't going back there. Uh,
Okay.
I actually had to buy out of my state scholarship, which would have taken me back there. And I realized I was like, man, I'm not going back there.
Where in New Mexico?
Artesia, New Mexico, 10,000 people. It's
Yeah,
an oil and gas town.
that's small. I've never heard of that. So
Whole family's there still. So,
wow.
so yeah. But so I was kind of up at Creighton, and I could really go anywhere I wanted. I had no kids, no wife, no girlfriend, no nothing. So third year, I narrowed it down to Austin, Charlotte, and Nashville.
Okay.
And that was
And what were some of the factors that help you narrow it down? Because I know a lot of people. I've got one of my best friends is in Germany in the army, and he's uh, getting out in about a year or so, and he's in that same boat. Where he's willing to go anywhere, and it's hard to start to like eliminate things. Like, what helps you eliminate states and cities from your list?
um, there was really two or three reasons. One was there was so many people moving to these areas. If
Hmm.
you look at the influx of people, um, each one of those cities has like 100 people a day. I know Nashville is plus 100 people a day right
Wow.
now moving in. Secondly, and maybe most importantly, I was going to be 25, single, no kids, no wife, and wanted to enjoy. My
Somewhere fun to live.
yeah, exactly. Had to be fun. Um, so those were, honestly, the two big reasons in New York, LA, stuff like that. Even though there's people moving in and whatnot, I wasn't interested in a big city.
Sure.
These are kind of like, I guess you would call them like a small big city.
They're a metro, but not like a crazy metro.
Yeah, around 2 million people. Each one of those cities had that much. And actually, me and a roommate, we flew out to Charlotte, loved it there. We talked to a bunch of dentists there. We had, messaged them on Dental Town, messaged them on Facebook, set up these meetings, and it was a Henry Schein rep that helped us out a lot. Um, so we went down there and loved it. Loved it. He actually, Grant Tesmer, you won't mind me saying his name. He's actually in a practice over there right
Oh,
now.
nice.
So, um,
There's a biscuit place in Nashville.
biscuit.
Uh, Biscuit Love.
Yeah.
I would straight up drive back to Nashville for some Biscuit Love.
Yeah.
Some of the I don't know that biscuits could be that good. It was like biscuits with like fried chicken, and an egg, and I can't remember if there was sausage. I think sausage in the gravy. Like it just blew my mind. It was phenomenal.
It's unbelievable. I mean, that's why I have to wear a shirt to the pool in the summers now. So,
Love it.
but after that trip, I actually did the same thing in Nashville, called a dental rep company or a dental supply rep company. Was like, hey, I'm a third year. I'm going to buy an office, either an acquisition or a startup. I would like to, get in front of some dentists in the area who are maybe starting to sell. And so I flew down to Nashville, not knowing a single person, and met with the practice broker for the supply company.
Okay.
And we got to talking at lunch, and she goes, I have a whole 2 days set up for us with some dentists and whatnot to go meet and whatnot, but you have to meet my friend. He has the exact same personality as you. Like, this was not even on the radar, but you remind me of him so much. And he used to own 6 offices. I mean, just to meet him, and he's not looking to sell his office right now, but there could be something in the works. So we went and met this guy, and a year later, I'm purchasing that office from him. That was my acquisition, and he is getting out of dentistry slowly. It'll still be like a 2-day a week job, but he does commercial real estate.
Oh, nice.
Developing. So he was in the process, what is this, 2.5 years ago, of a large retail center. And so I was his first tenant. He said, why don't you come and partner with me in this office, start up one in my new development. And
so did you buy him out completely, or did you buy into the first office?
So initially I bought in.
Okay.
I bought 49.5.
Okay.
Then it was set for a year or two to fully purchase the rest of it.
Okay.
And so we're in the final transitions of it now. So I guess you can say that I now fully own 2 offices.
Okay. And so you've kind of done both offices with this guy. You bought the one, and then your startup, you're saying, is in this big commercial development that he was doing.
Yeah, he played a big part in it. He was a huge help. But with that being said, he had been looking for an associate or someone to purchase his practice for 15 years. And like I said, he had 6 offices. Associates ran in and out, just never found one that clicked. And, him and I just had the same personality and whatnot. And it was just a very good mix. And he'll still be in that office with me for 5-10 years.
Okay.
Working.
And I love everything about this story. So I love that that commercial real estate was like his next phase, because that was one of my original. I got my residential real estate license in dental school, and the thought process was to eventually get my CCIM and go into commercial real estate. Um, and now looking back, like, you don't need to have your commercial real estate broker's license
Yeah.
to play in that space. But I didn't know what I didn't know, and so I really like this guy from everything you've said about him already. And then I love that you were willing to fly down and just like meet with a supplier, meet with a broker, and that's the kind of thing that people don't do early enough. I think they kind of like their plans live in their head for a long time, and they're kind of looking online, they're checking out the website. But when you go get face to face with the broker, with the suppliers, with dentists, it just gets the ball rolling and stuff happens, and it's not always what you expect to happen. But the fact that you're willing to do that in your third year of dental school, fly to a city where you knew absolutely no one and just start the search, and ended up not being that long of a search, it sounds like.
Yeah, it really didn't. It was a blessed situation down here in Nashville. But yeah, you're exactly right. Getting your face in front of these people. I mean, because you know as well as I do now, I didn't realize this back in dental school, but if you go meet a single dental supply rep for Henry Schein or Patterson or Benco or whoever, they're seeing 50 plus dentists a week. They are the ones who that dentist is going to say, "Hey, man, like I'm getting towards the end. If you hear of anybody," or they're also the people who know first that, "Oh, hey, this dentist just had a heart attack. He's going to need some help ASAP," or he's slowly recovering from it, but he doesn't want to be in that practice anymore. You go meet three supply reps, and I mean, the network that you just made is massive. So,
No, and I think even so, Thad Miller is a broker here in Indianapolis who has the website DDS Match. He's kind of franchised this website all over the place, and he used to be a supplier because he has connections, and he showed me practices before. He's known these dentists for 15 years, 20 years. And so those relationships and that local capital, that local knowledge, boots on ground, is hard to replicate just by scrolling online and sending emails.
mhm.
So you meet this guy. How quickly did you go from, okay, this is a possibility, to, hey, no, let's do this. Let me buy in, and then set up this transition. What was that like in your kind of beginning of your D4 year? When did all this start to happen?
Yeah, it was kind of beginning of my D4 year, and I was completely checked out of school. I mean, going to D4, I was burnt out. I did a lot of surgery in school. So other than clinical, I mean, whenever I went to class and whatnot, I was burnt out, and so I was looking up, how to figure out contracts, how to start up an LLC. I actually started working with a contractor, an architect, to start developing my floor plan, and I was doing that in school. I actually still have my first sketch of a floor plan, which I was going off of Google and some things that were posted on Dental Town and Facebook groups, and taking little bits and pieces that I liked from each of them
Mm.
and adding them into mine. And that's kind of how my startup was created. And then I gave that floor plan to Benco. I said, "Hey, I'll buy a CBCT from you if you transfer this into a CAD file for me." And so they basically did all the tiny little adjustments, added the ADA compliancy into it. CBCT ended up not purchasing it from them. Oops. And I had a great floor plan for no cost. So,
So
yeah.
you didn't pay an architect then?
Well, I paid the architect, but he just had to take
Like,
that CAD
stamps.
file, plug it right in. So that, I mean, for a 2,400 square foot office, my architect fee was like $6,000.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So, I mean, awesome. Yeah.
So, this is also great. It's both a thing that people, I feel like, do wrong is sometimes they are afraid to hire people, but sometimes when you know what you want, it's easier to do some of it yourself. Uh,
Mhm.
how many ops did you get into this 2,400 square foot space?
So it's plumbed for 7. I've got 3 ops currently running right now in a consult room. The consult room is actually plumbed to be like a crown seat, emergency, whatever, but I've just got it as a strict consult room because I know it's going to be 3 years
Sure.
until we're needing a seventh op.
Fully. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've got one surgical suite, a normal, you know, doctor's suite, and then a hygiene room. And we're in month 6 right now, and we're starting to see our recalls. And I'm probably going to have to add a second hygienist.
Dang. That's impressive.
And it's not super impressive because we're here at the startup 2 days a week.
Right.
Because I'm in the other office 3 days a week. Or I'm starting to split them two and a half, two and a half.
Okay.
But brings up another issue. I didn't have a clear vision. I thought in school I just wanted to do multi-practice, make as many as I can, and then just not do clinical dentistry. Well, now I've really started to. I've always enjoyed surgery, but I've really gotten into cosmetics and whatnot. So now I'm completely maxed at my startup 2 days a week, and I'm completely maxed at the acquisition 2.5, 3 days a week. So I'm at a standstill. I can add another hygienist, here for 2 days a week and whatnot, but I didn't, and this is still a big issue for me. I don't know what I'm going to do quite yet.
Sure.
For
Well, this is great because I feel like there's sometimes just this thought of multi-practice, and it's like it's going to be the bomb. It's going to be great. Um, the reality, my partners told me, they said, "Hey, a solo office, if you're producing, you're cranking, you can make extremely good money. Clear 500, 600. Whereas multi-practice, when you're not clinical, you have to have 4, 5, 6 practices sometimes to break that."
oh
And
yeah,
uh, in terms of the EBITDA and the cash flow. So you're at this point of, oh crap, like this ugly duckling phase of there's not enough here for an associate to replace me completely at either of these places. You've got momentum on the startup. Sometimes that's scary to bring someone in as an associate and say, hey, drive this, but there's no way they care about it as much as you do. And have your systems and your standards and all these things, because you've got a vision in your head, you've got a certain clinical skill set. So this is, I think you should come on Practice Underwater, and we should do a scan of your 2 practices and kind of do a pseudo intake type coaching call and see what George and Matt make of the whole situation.
yeah. I mean, we can do that for sure. I wouldn't say we're underwater. We're doing
No, and
we're,
that show, the name of it is meant to be inviting to people who are struggling, but people learn just as much from the people who are doing very well.
yeah, yeah,
We make it anonymous so that people can share their numbers and be very open, and we even want, most of the time we want the guests who are doing well to be anonymous as well, because
yeah.
there's, you and I were kind of talking about this, there's sometimes in dentistry a tendency for dentists to maintain a perception of how well they're doing online and to the public, and that's not always true. And so we want the anonymous people doing extremely well to come on the show as well, so then we can talk about their numbers without this getting attributed back to them. So there's no like bragging rights to it, but
Yeah, and I've got some non-bragging rights numbers I can share. That's for sure. Once you go full time in an acquisition, that's just smoking it. Going there 4 or 5 days a week, and then you open up a startup,
yeah,
and you go to the startup 2 or 3 days a week, and you're only in your acquisition 2, 3 days a week. You talk about a pay cut. Yeah, that hurts. I mean, I was living large prior to COVID. I mean, we were moving in the acquisition, and then COVID happened, which we made it out fine. But right after COVID, I opened the startup, And whoo, yeah. I mean, you're trimming your income 50, 60% right there.
Well, you doubled your overheads. I mean, you now have two overheads, two teams, two loans, all of the things that come with that, two set of fixed costs. So let's talk about numbers for a minute, if you don't mind. Let's talk acquisition versus startup. Purchase price and all in on the startup. How did those compare? I think if someone does just a straight startup, one of the advantages is you can kind of do a startup for less than a healthy acquisition. And if you've got a good vision, you've got a good marketing plan, you can catch it up within a decent amount of time. And all of a sudden, the amount of money you owe on that startup is less, and you have a higher revenue. Maybe you have a higher ceiling because you built out 7 ops like you did.
Mhm.
So I think you tend to pay more for an acquisition. You're making more out the gate. You pay less for a startup. You're making less out the gate, but you can eventually catch up, and then you owe less at that point. Did that play out for you? Let's talk some numbers for you.
Okay, so this can get a little in depth. So I'll start with just the acquisition
Okay.
first. Um, so talking to my partner now, he did not do any specialty procedures.
Mm,
He did crown, bridge, Invisalign, and fillings.
okay.
And it was a 4 op practice, 2 hygienists, 2 doctor's chairs. The hygienists run 45-minute appointments. They, I mean, they're moving. This office is on the corner of a street that probably has 200,000 plus cars a day.
Mm,
Zero money on marketing, zero anything. Um, and they were doing, I believe, whenever I first got there, any given year was around 1.8 production.
okay.
Um,
That's great. Wow. For two hygienists and that small of an office, that's incredible. I just want to
yeah.
pause on that because people ask us what's the ceiling for a single doctor practice with two hygienists or a certain number of chairs, and that's pushing, and that's just on bread and butter. That's impressive.
Well, it gets even crazier than that. So that was great and whatnot. And he only worked 3 days a week.
Holy cow. Yeah.
Believe, yeah, yeah, he is, and that's we could get a whole podcast into stuff I've learned from him in terms of selling treatment.
Mm.
Um, you can call it whatever you want, but if you can sell treatment, I mean, that's what's really gonna change your office, change your practice. Um, but yeah, so it was around 1.8. That's production. So if you're talking adjusted production and whatnot, you're
Okay.
going down to like 1.2, 1.3.
Okay. Collections around
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um, but he's very mean or not mean. What is it?
Lean and mean.
Mean and lean. He's very mean and lean, and very old office. Everything outdated. Um, and so whenever I came in, I loved surgery. That's what I basically did at Creighton the whole time, surgery and endo. Um, so I was able to add implants. I did a 300-hour maxi course during my 4th year of dental school.
Yeah, I was Facebook stalking and scrolling back through your photos, and I saw that you won an award from the oral surgery department on when you graduated. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So I did all of the not all of them. I did the good majority of the very difficult third molar extractions impacted. We usually have a resident. So Creighton doesn't have any specialists, and so we typically have a resident that comes in from UNMC, and he would do the very difficult ones. Well, my senior year, I got lucky, and there was no resident,
Oh, wow.
so the oral surgeons allowed me to do it. And there's a couple other kids in our class that would get to do some, but I probably did 40 to 50 plus cases of impacted thirds.
Nice.
And it doesn't really have anything to do with implants. For
Well,
if you're flapping that area open,
laying flat, putting sutures in, removing
exactly,
bone.
just feeling comfortable in that atmosphere,
Yeah.
that allowed me to come out, and I was doing sinus lifts, bone grafts, placing implants. There was really not a whole lot that I wouldn't do for a typical implant dentist. I'm not placing zygos or anything like that, but
Sure.
so we started to do that. I kept all the endo in house. Um, I would work out of one chair. He would work out of one chair. He was still only coming there 3 days a week. I was there 4 or 5. Um, him just helping me how to talk to patients, and we'll get into that here in a second. But we took that practice in the months of, I started in June I started in July. So it took me a couple months to kind of get under my belt. November, December, January, February, we were set where we were on track to do about 3.2 to 3.
Production or collections?
It would be 3.35 production.
Okay.
It would have came in somewhere mid twos.
Yeah, 2.5, 2.7, somewhere in
there. Yeah. And so we were on track to do that. COVID hit.
Yep.
And then anyways, my startup was set to open in the middle of COVID, which we just kind of delayed it. And then so I started the startup, and we are slowly getting back to that point where we're really working it down there in the acquisition. But it was all going great. I mean, a couple kinks in the road with the startup. So,
well, I can imagine there. I feel like there always are. Startups always come with kinks. Like,
yeah,
you're buying yourself problems when you do a startup.
Exactly. But yeah, with the acquisition, I mean, that's what it was. We were doing great.
One of my best friends, Abe, went to go try on some loops with Q Optics, and he sent me a text of his angle of declination from the side. So there's this picture of him with his old loops on, and then a new picture with the Q Optics loop on. His question was, is it really this big of a difference? It was about a 15-degree difference in how far forward he was having to angle his head. He's going from with the Q Optics loops on, he had almost like a slightly forward neutral head position. With his old loops, you could tell he was leaning his head forward and was having to strain his neck every single day to do dentistry. So to answer the question, is it really that big of a difference? Yes, absolutely. 15 degrees, it's huge. He was blown away. He's loved them. I've loved them. You should try them out. If you want to test run a pair of Q Optics loops against your old loops, email sales@qoptics.com and include the promo code SP19 to get a discount off your loops and light combo.
So one question I have for you, how did you negotiate because this is something that comes up if you're doing a buy-in to final buyout. How did you negotiate that initial purchase price in and then buying the second half? Were they both valued up front, or did it take into account some of the growth that you were going to add to the practice and then you're going to pay a little bit higher price on the back end? How did you structure that?
No. So that's one thing where I probably messed up, is that I didn't try to negotiate because I saw the opportunity.
Sure.
So whenever I first started working there, month 1, month 2, him and we were just kind of talking numbers, discussing, some figures and whatnot. And I could just see, I was like, man, we're doing well in here. I mean, so I gave him either 100% or 90 to 100% of production for purchase price.
Okay. For your first half of the buy-in.
No, so we set the price off of his previous 3 years.
Awesome.
Yeah, we set the price off his previous 3 years because he knows, I'm not going to pay for my production.
Cool. Well, that's what I was asking. If that doesn't matter then. If you're paying 90 to 100% of the collections, like, not a big deal.
Exactly.
As long as you're not having to pay for that growth, because a lot of times people do. They have to pay for some portion or all, or they come in as an associate rather than a partner right off the bat. And then when they're buying in their first half, they've grown the practice by $1 million, and now they're having to buy that back. So you negotiated all of that up front, and then it was just kind of a two-phased buy into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And because I'm starting up on his land, my loan is for my startup. He will be seller financing the whole loan.
Okay, cool.
The acquisition. So I guess you could say I've negotiated that a little bit, but he was more than willing to do it because he knew that nobody was going to come in reproduce what we had done and spend that huge lump sum. But in my shoes, I was like, take it. Here's that. I mean, I'll sign the papers right away. You can see we've already doubled the production. The podiatrist next door is getting old and crumbly. He's about to fall over. So we're looking at plans to move into, so make it an 8-op practice.
And yeah.
So we're looking to expand. And so I was like, you want 100% of production? Cool. I'm not even going to audit your charts because I can see what we're doing here.
Sure.
So that's kind of how that went.
Okay, cool. So he's doing seller financing for the acquisition or the startup?
Acquisition.
For the
Startup
acquisition.
is all through a bank.
Okay.
Startup is all through a bank.
So, okay, great. Because then we're looking at, so you probably total price over $1 million for the acquisition.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then the startup, what was your all-in costs on the startup?
All in cost. And I will say this right now, because I know there's going to be some people that already know the story. My stepdad is the CEO of a bank. So I initially got my loan through him, but people are always going to say, oh, you got that loan because it's your stepdad. He's a small town local bank. The small town local bank where my startup is right now has been requesting that I transfer that loan over to his bank. He wants this loan. Mm-hmm. He understands that a startup in the right location, it's as fail proof. It's not, but it's as fail proof for a banker as any other loan. My stepdad is a small town oil and gas bank.
Sure.
And he was like, oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, no problem.
No, and I don't think you'll get any pushback on that. I think the very much so you could have gotten this loan anywhere else. You could have gone to Wells Fargo, you could have gone to Bank of America, you could have gone to another, and maybe you tried, maybe some of those said no.
No, I didn't have to. And I've never understood why so many people want to go through Wells Fargo and Bank of America and whatnot. Go to your local bank, your local small bank, and you may pay a slightly higher interest rate, if anything, but those guys are way more than likely to loan to you, I would assume. I mean, they see the growth in the area. If you take them a awesome location, it's almost a no-brainer for them. When you're talking about large $500,000 loans, I mean, they really like dental loans.
Totally.
I mean, it's no secret in the banking industry.
It was funny. My mom, when my parents moved to Canada and my dad had a small business up there, and they were working with the bank, and the bankers heard that they had a dentist's son. They said, hey, does he want to come start a practice up here? Like, we'll give him $1 million. Like, dentists walk on water up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the thing that a small bank can do is that they can evaluate you and the circumstances and the practice, even though you're a new dentist, you're straight out of school, you bring them the circumstances, and a small bank is more likely going to be like, you know what, I see this, we can see what you can do. We're going to trust you, and this makes sense, versus maybe Wells Fargo is going to say, well, we need production reports and we need X, Y, and Z. No, I have no doubt you could have gotten this loan somewhere else. So
back to numbers.
Yeah. How much was your startup?
Startup build out cost. The bid came in at $254. I wanted some higher end finishes. I did a couple different modifications. My interior designer went crazy, which I was okay with. I mean,
sure. You saved on your architect costs.
I saved on architect. I saved on the contractor fees because they were building the whole development. So I used that same contractor to continue to build out this office.
Yeah.
And you talk about saving some money. It saved a ton of money. And another thing, I was able to jump in prior to, the slab being poured. So they were able to add in the plumbing where I wanted it. So my plumbing cost was next to nothing because the big fee in plumbing is drilling up the
cutting out concrete. Yeah,
and that's a huge time waster too, and just a big part of your your cost. And so it's very, very, very small plumbing fee. But it came out to, like I said, 254. I ended up spending probably about 300. I mean, you can see I've got frosted glass in the
Oh yeah,
office everywhere, and
you've got a beautiful office. Looking around on your website and everything. So, you didn't skimp on the finishes.
nope. And that has been one thing that sells treatment. We have these photos up, and we use those for our Facebook ads, and people just see this as the new modern office in the area, and they love it, and they come in because they saw our office, they saw how clean it was, how new, the finishes. So
It's hilarious to me that you told me on the call at the beginning before we started recording that your startup is in kind of a blue collar area and your acquisition is kind of in a nicer area. And I would have assumed the opposite because of when I saw your website. I saw like how nice this practice is, that you're starting to do a lot of like bigger case type stuff, full mouth rehab, cosmetic cases, all in four type stuff. Um, I would have thought for sure, like, oh, that's in a bougie area, and then
yeah.
his acquisitions in some old part of town. But it's the opposite. So talk to us about that.
Well, it's no longer like that. You talk about my story getting even more messed up. I censored myself there.
Thank you.
But truthfully, the F bomb would definitely describe the situation a little bit better. So at this given moment, 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, we were struggling in the startup.
Mm.
We truly were struggling. Marketing was not hitting.
What were you doing for marketing? Like, what was your initial marketing plan with this office?
Initial marketing plan was one round of mailers, a very heavy Google pay-per-click,
Okay.
very heavy, $3,500 a month.
Okay.
We had someone running our Facebook ads, which was just a picture, and it was a good graphics. The graphics were awesome on the ads. They did a great job on that, but it was just sending them to our website.
Mm.
And so that we were spending probably 700, I don't know, five, no, it wasn't near that much as Facebook. So probably like 400 or 500 a month
Okay.
on ads. And so all in, and just a couple other random things. Seems like ages ago. But you're probably looking around 4,500 to $5,000 of marketing a month, which is pretty fair for a startup, but we were not getting the new patients in.
So what like first, second, third month, what was your new patient flow? Do you remember it all?
First patient or first month, I don't know the new patient flow on month 1, 2, 3. But I do know our first month we did 30,000.
Okay.
The second month we did 45-ish.
Okay.
Third month, same thing, 45-ish. The fourth month, we just had that drop, and that's where I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? Like, I have got to sit down and figure something out. Like, this is not good. My hygienist was seeing like 2-3 patients a day, and keep in mind we're only open 2 days a week.
2 days a week, yeah. So not booked.
Yeah, not booked, and so I was struggling. And I mean, we were paying the bills fine, but we were just making no headway. And one morning on a Thursday, I was driving to my acquisition, and 6 o'clock in the morning, I get a call frantic from my assistant, who always gets there just super early. Dr. Morton, we have a massive leak in our office.
In the new one or the acquisition?
In the acquisition.
Okay.
It was not a leak. It was about 30 to 50,000 gallons of water dumped on our office.
Oh.
We took that office down to metal studs and concrete floors.
Oh.
Everything out. Everything just gone. Everything.
What happened? How did it? It was just some pipe in the ceiling that broke?
The supply line on the third floor toilet broke.
Oh no.
And I guess it was a high pressure line, and it ran all night. probably the single best thing that's ever happened to me in my dental career was that little 1/2 inch supply line breaking on the toilet on the 3rd floor. Um, so at that moment, I'm sitting there with all my staff. The water, I mean, it's like 3-4 inches of water. We're just trying to get everything out the back door or whatnot, blah, blah, blah. Office is shut down for 8 weeks. Six and a half, 6 to 8 weeks. I can't remember exactly.
This is pre or post COVID?
This is just from right now. So we just opened up 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so this was like October. This happened.
October 8th.
Oh dang!
October 8th. We had just started. Like I said, we had just started really
picking back up.
Low after COVID. Boom, water pipe bust. Literally to metal studs and concrete floors. But that gave me the time that I needed to come out to my office and to my startup and figure out what the heck are you doing? Like, we have got to revamp this and whatnot. So that was October 8th. My new marketing started October 15th. And I can talk a little bit about my marketing. I completely cut all Google pay-per-click.
Okay.
I don't think that brought a single patient, and I probably lost 20 grand on that. Mailer, okay. In September, I talked to my Facebook ad lady. I said, hey, this is not working. And she said, well, let's put a call tracking number, because I think you're getting new patients, but we just don't have the call tracking. So we had them funneled to a landing page on my website with a call tracking number. In a week and a half, we had 1,000 people go to that landing page and 0 calls.
So you could see the trap. I mean, the one thing you could see is you could see the traction or but you couldn't see the conversion. Exactly.
And I feel like we should have broke this podcast up into like the marketing, startup, acquisition, because there's so much.
Your life's a mess, so this podcast is a mess. So I'm just kidding, man. No, like it's just kind of like this all kind of happened. You've done so much in a year and a half since you graduated. And I like tangents, so we're fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm going off on the marketing tangent right here.
That's good.
And I'm gonna say his name. You can put his link in the show notes. He's awesome. He's completely changed my practice. I reached out to this guy, Timuchin. I can't even say his name. Temucin or Timucin. He just opened a website. Let him know I sent you. I know you probably don't put plugs on, but I'll get a discount on my monthly fee. So
there we go.
So let him know I sent you. But his Facebook ads, we kept using that lady to make our graphics. Nothing changed about the Facebook ads, except when they click on the Facebook ad, it opens in Facebook Messenger, and an auto-populated thing says, hey, thank you for reaching out for our free whitening special. Let's go ahead and get you scheduled. Are you interested? Click yes or no. If they put no, all right, see you later. They click yes, awesome. Do you have dental insurance? Yes or no. If they say no, perfect. This is all we require is a cleaning and exam, $199. You get your free whitening. Are you interested? Yes or no. If they say, if they say yes, they have insurance, then it'll take them through that route. What insurance? Is it PPO? Great. Can I get your phone number? And so literally when we come to work in the morning, we've got 5 to 7 new people from the night before that have filled out their information, and we just have to reach out to them, call them. We'll send them a message on the Messenger app and say, if they don't answer their phone, we'll say, hey, we tried reaching out to you, give us a call. Otherwise, we have this appointment out in, whatever because the auto-populated thing finds out if they like afternoons, mornings, beginning of the week, end of the week. So we already have all that info. And we're like, hey, so we have a Wednesday at 2 p.m. On December 15th or whatever it is. And so they can schedule through there. We'll reach out and call them. Anyways, end of October, we ended up doing around 65, 70
And
Uh,
that's dropping Google, that's dropping the mailer, and then just streamlining the conversion on your Facebook ads.
yep. And so we did that. And so, yeah, we did. And we were doing implant consults as well.
Hmm.
Um,
How did you do the implant consults? Is that through the Facebook ads or different?
we started also with an implant specific marketing company. It's way too expensive. He started doing my free implant consult, and we've had the exact same results. So October, and I mean exact same results as I'm probably seeing 4 or 5 implant consults a day
Wow.
as filler appointments. But October, yeah, we did that 60, 70, I can't remember. November, we did 106, and December, we are set to do 150 plus on 8 days, on 8 day, or, 2 days a week.
Right.
On our 6th or 7th month in our startup.
Wow.
Um,
That's incredible.
yeah. And so just having that pipe bust gave me the time to sit down and reevaluate what wasn't working, what was working, and just implement new systems. Fired my assistant, hired a new one, and just gave me the time to revamp marketing. And we're completely booked. I'm booked past January right now, so 4 to 6 weeks on my book, and hygiene is booked till at least the start of the year, with high quality appointments.
Yeah, so talk to me about that too, because when we chatted on Facebook, you said that some of the marketing you did up front led to a little bit more bread and butter type patients, whereas the marketing you're doing now has been leading to more implant patients, more cosmetic rehab type cases. Um, was that how did you make that shift of quality of patients?
So when we first started, we were just doing free whitening with completion of cleaning and exam. I don't like freebies, but if I'm going to give
You've
you
got an empty chair,
if I've got an empty chair, but then I also found out, hey, alginate impression, poured up in stone. My assistant goes and makes a suck down matrix, and I buy a bulk box of Zoom whitening, and I've got $15 into your whitening trays. That's
sure,
that's the cheapest patient acquisition you can get. And then what, $10 ad spend on Facebook?
right?
$25. Who here is not going to spend $25 per new patient?
Yeah, that works.
Let me know. I'd sign a check right now for 1,000 of them. But so I don't like the freebies, but that's what worked in our area, and we've kept it going. But here's the thing: we don't give them the whitening trays until they get their treatment done. And it's been one of those things that patients are like, hey, how many more appointments with you do I have till I get my whitening trays? I'm like, you've only got this crown and these fillings left, and then you're good to go, because we don't want to be whitening unhealthy teeth. If you got cavity, gum disease, whatnot, you don't want to be whitening those teeth. You've got other issues that we need to fix first. And they're like, oh, I completely agree. And so it has actually been like a motivational factor for our patients. Like, oh, I'm getting this clean. I'm getting this whitening as soon as I'm like after this third appointment with you. And so it's really helped progress them along. And that's been where we've gotten the bread and butter from, is just getting bulk patients into the hygiene chair. And people say like these freebie appointments, there's people that don't want to spend money. I haven't gotten that. It's been great. It really has. You definitely get your handful of people who are trying to nickel and dime, but it's been well worth it.
That's awesome. So you've gotten a lot of that's really cool that whitening, because I would take that any day of that cost of patient acquisition, but then also tie it back to completion of treatment of like, hey, you got some other things going on here. We really got to get through this. That's the gift that keeps on giving with that patient acquisition.
Exactly. And then their last thing in their mind, they finish the treatment. So you've got you just injected them in 4 different quadrants, got all the fillings done. They're pissed off at you because it hurt, your shot. Here's your free whitening. That's the last thing they're leaving your office with. Oh, my dentist gave me free whitening and he fixed my teeth. I don't even remember what the treatment was like. I
Right.
got free whitening here. And so they tell their friends, and it's been great. It really has been.
That's awesome. So that's where, it sounds like the bulk of your bread and butter work has come from. How
Mhm.
have you, because you said today you literally did 2 full mouth rehabs and you're sitting down exhausted. You didn't eat lunch, before this call. How
Yeah.
have you gotten some of these more high quality aesthetic implant type cases marketing wise? What shifted there?
So then we had the implant company getting our consults and stuff. And like I said, since then I've dropped them. Well, by the time this comes out, I'll have dropped them. I'm binded into a 30-day contract with them.
Okay.
So not a crazy deal, but I've also started the other guy doing the implant consults. With these implant consults, we're getting a lot of people that just hate their mouth and just hate their teeth, hate their smile, and they think dental implants are the solution.
Solution. Just pull them
And
all implants. Let's do it.
yeah, rip them all out. Dental implants, I've heard it. It's great. What does it cost? Blah, blah, blah. And you sit down with them and you're like, no, you have very healthy teeth. Implants are my favorite procedure to do, but that's not right for you. That's not what you need. Nothing that I can do is as good as what God gave you. We need to find you a solution that's going to last you the longest. Because if we go the route of dental implants right now, that's the end of your treatment. Once you get dental implants, very rarely, yeah, you're at the end of the road. If those fail, you've got big surgeries coming up. If you can even salvage it, you know what I mean? So I always have that conversation with them, and it's translated into a lot of full mouth reconstruction that we've started doing. Yeah, today we did 2 cases. One of the second case was probably the most difficult case I've done to date, and it was an all on 4 case. I actually have a denture ready to convert, but at the end of me really going over, I actually called her in 2 days before. I called her on Monday of this week. It's Wednesday. I said, man, we've got to talk about your treatment. I just don't feel comfortable with it. And so, yeah, literally I converted her over to a full mouth reconstruction. And, these patients are just, this is a tangent on selling cases, treating your patients right, wording. If you treat them right and they realize that what you're doing is what you truly believe is the best for them, they'll follow you along the road. Could you imagine a lady who thinks she's about to get all of her teeth ripped out, and Monday her dentist calls her in the morning, says, please come to the office today, we've got to discuss your treatment. And so anyways, we saved her teeth, and I'm actually documenting that case on Instagram. You'll see that. But that's where we've gotten those big cases from. And so the implant consults, in fact, the first week I did the implant consults, I sold 2 Invisalign cases out of them. So, and 0 implants. But I was like, damn, these people are just wanting help with their teeth and they don't know what else to do. They just see my free CBCT and free implant consult online, click it, come in, and they're open to whatever.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. That's probably there's a good handful of these patients that can't afford it and end up getting dentures. But I like pulling teeth and putting dentures in. But
Right.
And cost wise is always a factor. There's a large number that can't afford it. But you still get a good handful of patients that can, and they're open to financing options and hearing out what they can do to revamp their teeth, let them chew more, chew easier, chew better, smile, whatever it is to get rid of their denture, all those factors. So that's where the big treatments came from. And then I had a friend who is a influencer, was on the Bachelorette, or Bachelor, has like 1 million followers, and she came in. Hell, I wasn't even giving her a discount. I was about to make her pay for the cleaning. and she posted about it. And by the time she left the office, we had 3 or 4 people call in to schedule an appointment. We
Wow.
started to do some, and then I ended up writing off the cleaning and gave her a free retainer too. She's
Yeah.
one of my good friends. But so we started to do influencer marketing, and that's other big veneer cases that have started to come in. So all of those have really started to get the big cases in.
Hmm.
But
This is all like super interesting. And I have a bunch of thoughts that well, I'll have to air at another time because they're too tied up into my current plans right now. But this is really cool, and I think we've seen a contrast here between you've been able to add a bunch of amazing specialty work to an existing practice, and you've
Mhm.
been able to build a startup using a lot of the things that you can do. You know, the nice part about marketing for those types of procedures is that those few cases pay for all of the marketing and more. And if you bring in a bunch of other patients who don't end up doing that big stuff, but they end up kind of doing bread and butter stuff, that's also great. Much better than, okay, let's aim a ton of marketing money at bread and butter patients and none of them go for big treatment. Is that a fair statement to say?
Yeah, yeah. Um, that is a fair statement. And I will, it's, if you've got, like in our acquisition, this is a perfect example. The acquisition, we have zero room for new patients.
Hmm.
We have no room for new patients. So we are only doing the implant ads. We've got all the crown and bridge and fillings that we can handle. We want the bigger cases, the more profitable cases. So we're not doing the free whitening down there. We don't need the bulk new patients anymore. So yeah, that's a very fair thing to say. Um, and it's just, yeah, it's very practice dependent.
Okay, so let's go back to this will be our finishing point because I got to wrap up here in a second. But I don't know if we ever got the all-in cost on the startup once you included the equipment and working capital.
Yeah, we went on a big tangent there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I bought a CBCT. I bought $40,000 of implant stuff, which was like a package, whatever.
Sure.
And my final cost ended up being in between 550 and 600 ish.
Okay.
So not terrible, especially considering CBCT.
And it's a big space, 2,400 with 7 ops. Like that's a decent sized startup. That's nothing to shake a finger at. So all-in cost 550-ish.
Mhm.
Ironically, I mean, you look at what your production is now at for December, you kind of paid half of what you paid for the acquisition for the startup. Is that fair enough to say? I mean, less than half potentially.
Yeah.
Um, and you're catching up quick in terms of overall production on 2 days a week.
We're seeing October where we kind of started to revamp the marketing. I think we saw 45 new patients. November we saw 60, and we are on track to see 70 in December.
That's awesome.
And those are new patients, whether they be hygiene or implant consults or just whatever they, emergencies. We don't really see a whole lot of emergencies, surprisingly, here. But yeah,
That's
500 to 600 active patients now.
okay.
And so it's been good. And that's one thing that, I think that might be another podcast where you really dive into it and get George on here, because I'd like to go off on him on a couple things, or just go back and forth. The pros and cons of both startup acquisition.
Well, let's wrap up with the point you were telling me that before the call started, which was like team, staff, and culture.
Mm-hmm.
You've now had the chance to walk into an existing team and also build a team and a culture from the beginning. And you told us that you had to fire an assistant early on in the startup, but you just recently had some bumps in the road with your acquisition team.
I actually fired 2 assistants.
Mm.
I fired one last year, fired one this year. I found one finally that can handle coming to both offices with me.
Okay.
It's a big job, and that's the only person that we have going back and forth between the offices. But it has been some serious bumps in the road. And I don't even know if I'd call them bumps in the road. I mean, in terms of me being in the office, like I said, my partner, same person, him and I can just joke around, bounce things off, never stress about issues in the office. We can just talk them out. The front office, however, was completely different. These staff members had been with him for 20 plus years.
Mm.
The office manager, 20 plus years, hygienist, 20 plus years, his assistant, 20 plus years. But the front office just could not handle new procedures. They were so used to crowns, fillings, cleanings.
Mm.
That's all they had to worry about. Now I'm throwing in bone graft. Hey, it's a different type of bone graft. It's a bone graft and implant placement. Oh, it's a bone graft at extraction. Oh, it's a bone graft at, blah, blah, blah. Then all the implant codes and blah, all of this. And so they can't keep up with everything new getting thrown at them. It caused a lot of animosity between them and me. They just, and not to mention we took an office doing 1.5 to double that and didn't add anybody to the front office. And so it was just, we were milking it in that office, but it just caused a lot of strain, stuff that we did not see eye to eye on. They were still caught up in the way that office did it. And I was adding a couple of new systems to it. And it really brought down the morale in the office. It was an office that people were just grumpy coming into work. Front office was so backlogged on stuff, on claims. They didn't understand we were getting rejections on every single implant, root canal, different procedure that we did. And it was not all peaches and cream with an acquisition, not at all. So this last week I fired 2 of them. And hopefully you might want to edit this, but by the time this one airs, you don't have to edit it. Actually, by the time this airs, the third one will be gone anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, let me tell you, the staff problems are something that is very underrated.
Yeah.
In an office, and especially for new grads coming out. Golly.
Well, and you mentioned you're 25, and some of these people have been practicing for 20 plus years. And it sounds like some of them have a chip on their shoulder about that too.
Yeah, I'm 26 now, and that was a big issue. I think it was a big issue. I don't think that maybe they won't admit it, but I think it was.
Yeah.
Especially for like the older people that 25 years experience, and I've got 25 years of earthly experience. So, it was an issue. We can dive into that as much as you'd like.
No, that's awesome. Well, I think we should wrap it up. I think there's definitely room for some future episodes here. And I think whether we do it on this segment or practice underwater, I think there'd be a lot of good content. And like I said, your practices are definitely not underwater at all. One of them was, and you had to gut it for 8 weeks.
Yeah, literally. One was underwater and one was underwater.
Yeah.
So I guess it does fit.
But your vision and your plan for moving forward, it's like, okay, maybe there's some work of like, what's the next step to gear change and balance the growth on both of these sides and figure out, who to plug in and where and how to grow and scale from here.
Mm-hmm.
I do want you to mention that guy's name again, the Facebook ad into the messenger.
Yeah, let me go to his texts. It is, and like I said, I could be saying his name wrong, and I talk to him on the phone weekly,
Sure.
but I'll never have to call him by his name anymore. So it's Timuchin. It's his website. He just put it up. It's bookedpatients.com. Bookedpatients.com. $2,000 a month retainer fee. He runs all of your ads. He'll put stock images out and create a couple for you if you would like. If you're like me and want very custom Facebook ads that I feel work better, I hired a graphic designer to make mine, and it's not expensive. But I would highly recommend him. Let him know that I sent you so that I can get a little discount on my next retainer fee. But highly recommend.
Cool. No, and it's those little things of figuring out in your market Facebook ads that keep people in Messenger and get a bunch of data out of them, and then soft serve it up to you so that it's just easy to crush it. When you call them, you know all the details, you know exactly what they're looking for and how to schedule them. I think that's a brilliant idea, and if people take nothing else away from this episode, that's a great lesson to learn. And the last question I have for you is, I love people who do acquisitions and or startups straight out of school, because it proves our hypothesis that practice ownership is still very much alive and available to the generation of dentists who come out with $500,000 worth of debt right now. You've done both. I don't recommend both.
Either, not at the same time.
I'm king of overcommitting myself. I feel like you might have outdone me here.
Yeah.
So what would you, in retrospect, between the two, at this point, at this moment in time, December 2020, if you could do it all again and just pick one, I know yours were tied together because you did them together, which would you pick?
I would probably have to pick I'm actually saying this off of financial advice.
Okay.
I think I would probably have to pick the acquisition because I don't take anything from the startup still.
Right.
And these last 2 or 3 months I could, but I'm plugging that back in and just accelerating growth as much as possible. So unless you had just some lump sum, rich, hot wife that you can just rely on, it would be tough. You'd be really pinching pennies for the first couple of months. And, I've got the 2 days a week at the acquisition to rely on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'd probably do the acquisition if I found the right acquisition. If.
Huge key there. And do you know what we should do? I should interview you again in a year. We'll get an update on all of this, and I'll ask you that same question in a year, and we'll see if it changes.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. I mean, you could interview me 3 months ago, and I'd had a startup office for sale. If anybody,
you'd have been offering it on the episode. Does anyone want to start up? Here you go.
Yeah, honestly, looks good.
Well, cool. Well, this has been a blast. I think we've got a lot more to dive into in the future, and I appreciate your candor. I appreciate you opening up and sharing your journey, your numbers, your struggles, successes, and thank you. Thanks for coming on the show.
I enjoyed it. It was fun. We'll do it again sometime.
Let's do it again. Awesome. Well, we will talk with you all next time on the Shared Practices podcast.